Hello and welcome to Chapter 1. My name is John Page from Dymocks, and our very special guest tonight is best-selling author Trent Dalton. Trent's award-winning debut novel, Boy Swallows Universe, has sold over 500,000 copies in Australia, and I couldn't believe that number. I had to double-check it twice. It's a crazy amount of books for a debut. It's also the fastest-selling debut in Australian history. And he has returned this year with his standout second novel, All Our Shimmering Skies, which is set in wartime Darwin. Welcome tonight, Trent. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, John Page, it's a great honor, and it's actually a deep and meaningful one too, because you, sir, were one of the first very, very early champions of Boy Swallows Universe. So I wouldn't even be here, mate, without you. So this is really nice, mate. Thanks for taking the time out to do this. And to all you amazing people out there tuning in, thank you so much. You know, it's never lost on me when anyone ever takes the time to support Australian literature. So well done. Good for you.
Well, it's my pleasure. When someone said did I want to interview Trent Dalton, I let them finish the sentence before I said yes.
That's great. That's brilliant, mate. Thank you.
So I thought we might start off with the new novel, All Our Shimmering Skies. Tell us, in your own words, a little bit about the novel, what it's about, and what led you to write this book.
Oh, great start. Okay, All Our Shimmering Skies. It's the story of a 12-year-old girl named Molly Hook. This poor kid, John, she's living such a tough life in World War II Darwin, 1942, that she's come to believe she's cursed. She's being raised by grave diggers, her uncle and her father. They're both troubled men. And her best friend is the sky. Her best friend is the blue sky. And as the bombs rain down over Darwin, she might even think that these bombs are raining down because of her. Because of her sort of curse. And she decides to change her fate at the start of that horrific day, February 19, 1942. And she goes deep into that beautiful vine forest country that we love here in Australia, of that kind of those places that are on the edge of Darwin, and she goes to find the man that she believes might be able to remove her curse. And along the way, she's joined by two of the most just started and loving it, says Kate. Thank you, Kate. Along the way, she's joined by two of the most unlikely companions, a gin-swilling, cigarette-chugging actress named Greta, and a fallen Japanese fighter pilot named Yukio. And Yukio, she initially thinks might well be the enemy, but what if that guy turns out to be the best friend she's ever had? And and that's the story. It's my great love letter to Australia. It's a story about gifts that fall from the sky, the curses we dig from the earth, and the secrets we bury inside ourselves. And it's and between you and me, it's one great metaphor for my life in 1990s Brisbane. So so it's many things, John. But ultimately, it's just this great rollicking adventure. Really, it's people ask me like, hey, write the sequel to Boy Swallows Universe. And you know what this is? This really is. In answer to your question, to your great opening question, what is this thing? Well, it's actually the book that Eli Bell from Boy Swallows Universe, if he grew up, moved to middle-class Brisbane, raised two girls, and turned 40, he goes downstairs into his daughter's rumpus room and he writes this book. And it's the book that Eli Bell would have wanted to read at 12 when he's going through all those troubles. So that's sort of what it is, mate. Yeah.
Excellent. And it's magical too. You can't leave that word out. It's a magical book too.
Oh man, I mean, it's filled with magic. I mean, it's a story about the way in which life can sometimes knock the magic out of kids, and Molly Hook is a kid who's walking the knife edge of having life bash that magic out of her, but she refuses, and I love anyone who does that. I love any kid, I love any Australian kid who does that too. So you're so right, John. I mean, it's a total story of magic, and the ways we can build up magic in our own minds, and the ways the earth reminds us of magic, and the ways there's magic just our doors, in our own backyards. And I love that. There's magic in the world of insects, and there's magic in the trees, and there's magic up there in the sky. So you said the M word.
What led you to setting the book in Darwin during the war, and what research did you do for the novel?
Darwin was the first place. I didn't fly in a plane, John, and Boy Swallows Universe might explain why that was so. I didn't fly in a plane until I was about 21 and had my first journalism job, and I got flown to Darwin. And first place I ever left Queensland, and I went to Darwin, and that place hits a person on all five senses, and I have this real feeling that thank you, Delia. Absolutely love the book. I love you, Delia. I think you're amazing. And it hit me, this place. It hits you in every sense, and every writer feel every sense. And if you feel all your senses, then to this one that I call the sixth, kind of sixth sense. But I mean the sense that deals with everything, like the soul and true love, and the reason I love my girls, and the reason I love my wife, and that sense is a thing that is inexplicable. And Darwin, you go to a place like that, and it reminds you of all those things, because in a different way, and the people are different, and the characters that you find in the pubs are different, and the history of the place. I mean, it wears its on it. It's a living history when you go to Darwin, and you can see the remains of the bombings of Darwin, and and this wasn't just one day that killed potentially more than 236 people on those bombing raids. It went on and on and on, and had a profound effect on that city. And it was something at 21 I was going, that is pretty amazing. I'm a World War II lover of that kind of, the history of World War II. I'm really interested in. And my eldest brother, Joel, was in the army, and he was a major in the army, and he got posted to Darwin. So I'd be flying there all the time, and I found myself just going deeper and deeper into that history. And so I had that story about All Our Shimmering Skies, and I had this idea of this girl who goes deep into that vine forest country, and I knew she was going to be aided by 4 gifts that fall from the sky, right? The first sky gift is a map, and the second sky gift is a friend. The third sky gift is a miracle, and the fourth sky gift is the end of Molly's story, right? And that was the friend that falls from the sky. And I knew that person who falls from that sky is going to be this guy, Yukio. And that's inspired by a story that I've hung on to for about 15 years, as I was going to write about it just as a journo in my day job. And that's the story of Hajime Toyoshima, who dead set on the first day of the bombings of Darwin, February 1942. His Zero fighter plane gets shot down over by the Aussie Deal, and his plane crash lands in Melville Island, which is as wild and magical as a landscape as you could possibly find. He hits his forest patrols. He wraps his head in a bandage. He grabs a pistol in his right hand, and he hops out of his crashed plane and sets about walking through this wild vine forest sort of country. And I always felt like, damn, what did that guy think? What was going through his head? Ended in, to him, must have felt like a different planet. And that always struck me like, wow, like what a moment in time. And of course, I don't talk about this in All Our Shimmering Skies, but Hajime's story is incredible. He goes on, he encounters 10 First Nations people, one of whom, an incredibly brave man named Matthias Ulungara, creeps up behind him with a tomahawk and holds it to his head and takes him as a prisoner of war, thus becoming the first Australian to capture a Japanese soldier on Australian soil. And that's an amazing story that I always thought, the heck didn't Baz Luhrmann make that film? And it just always sat in my head as, it was always there, John. And I thought, okay, these sky gifts that fall, and I really had that gift of Hajime. And, essentially I turned him into a really soulful, poetic man named Yukio who Molly runs into along the way, and I love this guy because he reflects. Well, Yukio is just the way I walk through that. Yukio walks through that vine forest country the same way I walk through it in my research. So I've got all that sky gift stuff, and then I get back to Brisbane, my little nook downstairs right here in this house where I wrote Boy Swallows Universe. I went back to that desk and I just did the journo thing, and I got on Google and I found this woman named Tess Addy, and I knew I needed to go. I want to set this book in this place that I've loved for a long time, Litchfield National Park. And if any of you guys watching this have been there, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you happen to have read that book and you know that landscape, you'll know it full well where I'm going. And but I phoned a woman, Tess Addy, who does these Indigenous tours of Litchfield National Park, and she's deeply rooted to that land, and her family it's her spiritual heartland, you know. And I just said, yes, she runs these amazing Indigenous tours where you get to see the landscape through her eyes. And I just said, Tess, you don't know me. My name's Trent Dalton. I wrote this book called Boy Swallows Universe, and it's doing okay, and looks like I might get a chance to write another one of these novel things that I'm a bit terrified about writing. And I'm wondering, and I said, I'm wondering if you could help me. I've come up with this story about Molly Hook, and she's this Aussie girl. She thinks she's cursed, and she goes off into this wild landscape. And I want that landscape to feel like Oz. I want it to feel like Dorothy leaving Kansas and walking into Oz, like black and white going into Technicolor. And I said, this kid, and I'm saying all this stuff, John, I swear, it was really funny conversation. I said, this kid, she talks to the sky, and her best friend is the sky, and she takes guidance from the sky, and she whispers these deeply personal things to the sky. And I'm saying this to Tess, she whispers these things, and Tess didn't laugh me off the phone, John. She went, well, who doesn't? And it was the most bloody beautiful thing. And I'll never forget her endorsement of the story. I mean, not even just, my brain, you know what I mean? She's going, I think you might be a little bit off, in your head there, buddy, but I know what you're talking about. And she said, come on up and I'll show you where Molly gets to the research question. So bang, you're off, So then I walked through this land with Tess Addy, who, you could not find a better person to take Molly's, I literally walked Molly's journey, and the things that, if you've read the book and some of those answers to the riddle, and anyone listening and watching this, all of that stuff, some of those answers to the riddles came from that walk, that very sort of incredibly magical walk that I had with Tess. So it was sort of, you couple all of that stuff, all of that head stuff and all that heart stuff and all that research landscape stuff, and then you come back to Brisbane, and then it's just you and that white page again, and you kind of and you just you just fill it all, and you try and throw it all in these fingertips, and you just let rip, John. I just sort of let rip and let it flow, and just sort of tried to transfer what I felt on that walk with Tess into the back half of that, and and it means the world when you guys, and I'm reading these comments that that those guys are feeling it too. So I love you out there, Pauline and Sally and Jess and Margot. Muhammad, thank you so much. It's it's beautiful. Yeah, sorry, mate. Long answer, John. I'm sorry, answer. Man. We've got a fair few. I'll zip it.
Oh no, keep going. So your new novel is again packed full of unforgettable characters. This is becoming your trademark. Which character did you like writing about the best in All the Shimmering Skies? I think you may have already alluded to this, but I'll ask it outright.
It's funny. I mean, anything to do with those key three, Yukio, Greta, and Molly. I mean, John, that's such a great question, mate, because I love writing Yukio because he reflects every character I ever loved as a boy who helped me escape from, mad stuff, and I'm talking like Housing Commission, Brackenridge, bloody nonsense, and I love the idea of Yukio coming into some Aussie kid's world. Maybe I have this fantasy that some kid who's 14 and he's, whatever, he's on the outskirts of Sydney or wherever, Adelaide, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, wherever, Darwin, and he's just getting lost in the story of Yukio, and I just love that, and I wrote that for those people, those kids who would, crazy stuff's going on down the hallway, but the power of a kid being able to go to the bedroom, close the door, and step into Yukio's shoes. And I think writing him was so deeply important and enjoyable. Okay, but this is such a typical Trent Dalton answer. But here's the thing about Molly. Molly, this 12-year-old girl who, you know, not that long ago, my youngest daughter came home from school, and her teacher at school had been reading Boy Swallows Universe, which is an interesting conversation in itself for Sylvia to have with her teacher. And the teacher was piecing together the background and the Dalton family history. And she comes home, she says, "Dad, you wrote that book about two beautiful boys, Eli and Gus Bell, but, you know, you're a father of two girls." And I am. I'm a father of two girls, age 13 and 11. And she's like, "You know, what book about, and like, what are you here for, Dad? You know, if not to inspire me, it's not, you know, contrary to what you might think, Dad, it's not for you to unpack all the stuff that's in the back of your head, you know, and all your baggage." She challenged me beautifully and just went, you know, she said the underlying thing of what she's saying was, you know, "You're kind of here to inspire us, aren't you?" And I thought, yeah, you're right, Sil. And so I did that. And you know, so I wrote this character, Molly, and it's no coincidence that she's smack bang in between 11 and 13. She's 12. And she's so much of my daughter's, John. She's so much, she's my eldest daughter's quiet and peace and thoughtfulness, and she's so much my younger daughter's recklessness and bravery and humor. And so I loved writing that kid, because I'm just writing those into adventures, you know. And so that was fun. And I'm sorry I'm not giving you a definitive, such a fence sitter, this idiot here, but here's the thing about Greta Mays, right? So maybe Greta Mays was my favorite because she is every golden age Hollywood actress that I ever fell in love with as a kid. And I filled in the writing of it, John. I had pictures of Kate Hepburn and just all these amazing actresses, black and white, just smashing down cigarettes and drinking hard and taking nothing from nobody. And then at the same time, next to them, I had all these pictures of Madonna from the 1980s. And there's no human being who was ever more wondrous than Madonna in about 1985. And so I loved writing Greta Mays, man. So like, you know, but look, if I had to choose one, I've got to say Molly, because, you know, she's that, you know, holds the story and so much of here's the thing, John, here's the great secret. Well, here's the truth, you know. And as well as me writing about my daughters, and as well as me wanting to run away from Boy Swallows Universe and the world of crime in 1980s Brisbane and early 1990s, well, I ran to Darwin and to run away as far from me as possible. And I absolutely ran into that vine forest country. I sitting by a water pool, and you know, he's sitting on a rock just looking at me going, "Why aren't you writing about me? You know, I think I'm on this earth to write about that kid, because that kid's kind of me." And I'm so a lot, John, is me writing for Eli, you know, and writing for, so Molly is me and Molly's Eli, and so it's just all wrapped up and sort of thing. So it's so multi-layered, which is why Molly has to be the most enjoyable, right?
Oh, that was a great answer, Trent. I don't think that was not the answer I was expecting, but that was brilliant. I'll read the book again now.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no.
So my next question, though, so Boy Swallows Universe has been such a phenomenal success. How much of that took you by surprise, and then how much pressure did that put on you writing this new book? I mean, obviously you tried to run as far away from Eli as possible, and he's still in that waterhole. But how much of that pressure was when you were down in the room writing this new book? How much pressure was that on your shoulders for this book?
Oh man, I mean, can I give another long answer, John? I'm sorry, everyone listening, but I promise this goes places. This one, this answer, you're gonna love. Okay, you're gonna love this answer. I'm really setting this one up, but I'm setting myself up for a fall, as I did, which is funny because that's exactly what I did with Boy Swallows Universe. Yeah, John. I mean, mate. I wrote that book, as you know. Like, it's, it's all real. It's like, I mean, it's 60%. I call it. My mum says it's 50% fact. I say it's 60% because there's 10% that was in here, and I consider imagination sacred and real. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. You know, it's sort of like the 10% that I'm talking about is me fictionalizing, apologizing the other 50%. And but that was real. Like that's important to me. Even the imagination that I had as a kid, and me dreaming of doing the things that Eli did, and you know, busting into prison and stuff like that. That all comes from very real places of me wanting to do that as a boy, and all of that. You know, secret room and the red telephone. That's just that, man. That is actually out. You know, the house still exists, and it's out there, and I've been past it, and but I had to get away from it. You're right, but I wrote this thing, and I thought, John, maybe 5 people would read it, because the book is pretty whacked. You know, like it's pretty. It asks a lot. The readers the same way I think All Our Shimmering Skies does, and I'm sorry for that for everyone. You know, and there's darkness at the start of Boy Swallows Universe, and there's darkness at the end, and there's darkness, you know, in All Our Shimmering Skies, but I have to put that stuff in there because that's just the world, you know, that's the world I've seen and the world I know. And so hopefully in a Hemingway sort of sense, the sun will also rise in these books, you know, and it's sort of like, and when it does rise, it'll shine that much brighter because you've seen the darkness as well. And so, but here's the thing, here's the thing about what happened to that Boy Swallows Universe book, which I thought 5 people would read, right? Meaning, and I mean 5 literally, my mum, my 3 older brothers, and my wife Fiona. Like that would be it. And then Catherine Milne from HarperCollins, of course, sends this email like, oh, you know, we're actually going to publish this thing, and we think Australia's going to love it. And I turned to my wife, and I'm like, oh, sorry for swearing, but I just said like, oh, fuck, like what have I done? It was highly complex sort of time, but it also just shot straight into my imposter syndrome, and it just shot straight directly into that. And I've been a journo for like 20 years, and Narelle, thank you so much. Narelle just said never apologize for your work. Okay, Narelle, okay, well, guess what happened? So then, okay, Narelle's just, okay, you've tapped into exactly what I'm talking about, right? So then I'm in Adelaide, right? I'm in this bookstore, John, and I'm just telling these sort of stories about this imposter syndrome I feel about how, and someone's like, what are you going to write next? And and I'm like, well, I don't even know if I will write something else, because, you know, and I think it might be because of the background of Boy Swallows Universe and all that, where you just grow up in a world like that and you just think nothing good can sustain, nothing good can be maintained for any length of time. And so I'm not even going to tempt the gods. I'm not going to meet the universe that was so kind that allowed people to enjoy this book that I thought 5 people were going to read. I'm not going to mess with. I'm just going to go back to my little shell and my little hole up in Brisbane, and I'm in my bunker, my little office, and just go back to my day job of journalism. And I'll be bloody thankful to the whole of Australia for embracing Eli Bell, and I won't tempt fate anymore. And that's this imposter thing where it's like, I don't belong here. I don't belong on a shelf with Richard Flanagan or Geraldine Brooks, my heroes, you know, and these people that I grew up reading. I can't stand. You know, it doesn't work, right? And this woman's came question time. We're doing this sort of event, and it was question time, and this woman stood up, and she goes, "I don't have a question. I've just got a statement," you know. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, go." And she goes, "Really beautiful, warm-faced woman." You know, like you know, just maybe sort of, you know, late 60s, and she just goes gentle, you know, and she just goes, but she just really lights up, and she goes, "Stop it! Stop this nonsense!" And I'm like, right. And she goes, "We are here because you wrote that book, Boy Swallows Universe, and we want you to get your ass back to Brisbane and write us another, because we believe in you more than you believe in yourself." And I lost it. I was really moved by this woman saying this, and I looked her dead in the eye, and I just go, you don't know what this means to me, because I was thinking about the story of All Our Shimmering Skies, but not knowing whether I belonged here enough to give it to the world or whatever, you know, silly stuff. But that thing that she said was so powerful. And then get this though. So then it comes time to sign the book, right? And there's 20 people who were in that store. They lined up for signing. And this beautiful pint-sized, warm-faced woman who said that beautiful thing and was exactly the thing that I needed to hear, she comes up and she's got the book under her arm. And I go, I really mean it. And I gave her this big hug. And I said, I really mean it. I needed to hear what you had to say just then. And she goes, yeah, you know what I'm talking Fox. It was just like the moment of my whole Boy Swallows universe journey was kind of sealed, and that woman enabled me and gave me the magic. You know, she gave me the magic and gave me the license to just get back to Brisbane and not feel the pressure and just realize that, man, you're lucky. And could there be a worse first world problem than, oh dear, what's Trent Dalton going to do with his second book, you know? And it was sort of like, all right, so all bets are off. Just go for it. And I treated it, John, like, you know, my year 6 teacher, mate, swear to God, year 6 teacher, Mrs. Garside. My dad didn't go to many parent-teacher nights. He went to this one. And he came home and he said, and I remember him, I said, oh, what'd she say? What'd she say, Dad? And he goes, what the bloody hell have you been doing at that school? And I went, why? What did she say? And she goes, she told me that she's deeply terrified that you're going to become the leader of an outlaw motorcycle gang. And I thought, well, look, whatever happens, doesn't matter. I'm not the leader of an outlaw motorcycle gang, so it's all gravy. It's all gravy, no matter what. And you know, and so, but mate, as I say that, have you seen me on social media? Have you seen the way I go nuts when anyone says the slightest positive thing about that book? And I like it because like I didn't feel any pressure. It's bullshit, man. And I'm just telling myself to get through that because, you know, Molly meant the world to me, and Yukio does, and Greta does. And so I'm reading these beautiful comments from people, you know, like Helena and Valerie and Susan and Denise. Like, it just means the world because, yeah, man, I felt every ounce of the pressure, no matter how much I kidded myself and lied to myself to tell myself as though I didn't, you know. And so, because Boy Swallows Universe just, it, you know, I have no doubt, like I'm put on this, I was put on this earth to write that book. And it was, you know, I lived through 38, you know, it took 38 years plus 1 year to write, you know, and, you know, it's the book that I hope follows me around for the rest of my life. And I'll be proud if it does, you know, and I'd have no qualms, you know, which is what I just love talking about it still. And, you know, and it's sort of, but it did a thing that I can't possibly control or understand or even question, because I do think, I mean, don't even get me started, mate. I'll start talking about the universe and how it bullies me around and stuff. Like, that's how deep I've been going with it, you know. And I mean, I get letters about that book from kids in Korea, like South Korea, going, I don't know where Brackenridge, Brisbane, Queensland even is, but I need you to know that that book's changed my life, and that book has shown me that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that my situation has an end and has and might even have a happy ending. And, you know, man, so it's just like, you know, I do feel like, yeah, you know, it's all deeply powerful. And I do need to remember that stuff whenever I get anxious about how people receive whatever I have to write. It's like it's already been received beautifully by that 14-year-old kid in South Korea. You know, it's done. That's enough. Everything of that is enough. You know.
That's amazing. I mean, it's look at all the comments we've got tonight. I mean, Boy Swallows Universe touched so many readers' hearts, and it's one of those books we're never going to forget. But going back to that Korean boy, it not only has been a hit in Australia, this book has been big overseas. Tell us more about some of the reactions, how the book has been received in other markets. Like, I know you toured in America. How have the Americans taken the book? How have the English? How are other countries responded to Eli and August?
The South Americans have been amazing in terms of their love of the style of the book. Like, people sort of embracing dare I say, the magic realism, which I didn't even intend, because for me, the Brazilians and so forth, they'll go, oh, that thing. Like, I'll get these messages, and it's really beautiful, John. They'll go like, I love the red telephone, the metaphor of the red telephone. I'm like, oh, well, I won't tell that guy that telephone really existed in the dude my mum fell in love with in the 1980s. It was basically the phone that he'd used to call his bloody crim mates when he was in a jam hiding out down in the secret room. And, all that stuff. I don't sort of say it, but I love that they embrace the magic of it, and that's beautiful. And they've sort of, in a sense, sort of put me in that beautiful kind of bunch of writers from South America that just, write such amazing kind of worlds. And that really meant the world. And, like some kid in the equivalent of Brackenridge, but in Texas, you know what I mean? Like, that means the world. It's just these, the universe that is created in that book is not foreign. It's not foreign to a lot of Australians. I mean, all of us know those worlds. We all know it. Like, I don't think that world that I describe is far from anyone. All of us know it instantly. We all, whatever. We all are friends with an Eli Bell, or we went to school with an Eli Bell, or whatever, or we are Eli Bell, and so, but, and that's the same around the world. And I love the universality of that book, where people can go, yeah, you know what? Well, the great fear I had, John, was that people would have a crack at people I love that are in that book. And, people who've done perhaps things that they're not proud of and gotten themselves into situations they're not proud of. And I was worried that people would be having cracks at those sort of people and question me for loving them so dearly, right? For admiring them so much for surviving it all. And but the cool thing is that some kid or some mum in Poland is like, again, message, this social media stuff's quite amazing. You can get a deep message over Instagram just off cold, and it's a mum in Poland saying, thank you for Frankie Bell. That's me. And that's very powerful. Yeah. And but as far as it connects, it's got a real slow burn, I tell you, overseas, because I don't think people know what to make of it. And then it's one of those things, look, they don't have a John Page over in the States, man. Like, honestly, like you need people over there to go, just read it. Well, maybe no, I'm sure they do. They do. But it's I do believe that book sort of grew legs here because of people like yourself who went, look, whatever it says on the blurb, yeah, it is that, but it is something else as well. And you need someone to sort of just go, hey, it's actually a book about love and hope and all those other beautiful things as well, despite what it says on the blurb. So in answer to your question, yeah, like it's not doing the majority of that 500,000 that you're talking about. That's the beautiful people of Australia and New Zealand. And I love that. But I love also just getting just the odd little thing here and there from someone who's reading it in Czech Republic and, like, seriously, Japan, and or someone's reading a translated Hebrew version, and it's like words like Jackie Howe singlet and medium pace bowling translated to Hebrew, and it's just nuts, and golden circle pine orange popper translated to Hebrew, that just blows my mind. So and it's just got this life of its own, that thing. It really does. It really does. And it just, anyone who does contact me is contacting me for a very deep reason. And I can't tell you how many long letters and long chats I've had with people just going, hey, I'm hearing you, I'm feeling you, and thank you for connecting in that way. And it's something very special that I truly believe only books can do, and don't even, like, hope, that book's about hope, and you cannot teach hope. It's hard to find hope in a 2-hour film. It's hard to find it in a 6-part television series. And I think genuinely hope sometimes can be only found in a 400-page book. And, I love books for that reason. And I have no doubt, you're a peddler in hope, John, as you do at Dymocks. I think you all are. I think hope is the biggest thing that booksellers sell, and I think we forget it sometimes. It's, hell yeah. I mean, look at this year, man. I mean, look at what you guys did for everyone in 2020. It's like, what do we do? We went to our books, and it's very cool. Yeah. Don't get me started on hope.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. One last question for me, and then I'm going to throw over to the audience to ask their questions of you. So Boy Swallows Universe has been optioned for a film by Joel Edgerton. How involved have you been with that side of the book, and where are things up to with the movie?
Yeah. Oh, mate, it's where they're turning it. Well, okay, just here's the skinny. Yeah, it's going to be an eight part. They've turned it in. It started off as a 6-part, really long form, your Netflix, your Foxtel, your kind of Stan type series, and then it's so rich, wonderfully. It's going to be 8 parts, and I am currently. Well, I was really reticent actually to jump in on the writing of it because of the stuff I said. Like I carried around the rocks of that story for quite some time, and it was really good to be done with them, to be honest. Like just sort of get them into that book, and I really feel it was the writing of All Our Shimmering Skies that has allowed me to go back to it, and it's really funny. It's like I had to go back in time to 1942 and. That beautiful girl, Molly Hook, man, she helped me. She helped me go back to kind of maybe where I belong, and it was really beautiful of her to do that for me. And I just thank her so much for it because, like, literally yesterday and today, I just sort of threw it out there to the guy, this amazing guy, John Colley, who wrote Master and Commander and some really amazing kind of big Hollywood films. He's a Sydney guy. And John and the producers have, the most surreal thing, John, is that the screenwriter John Colley, Troy Lum, the producer, and I've already had a meeting with Edgerton, which was hilarious in Sydney, which was just, me fanboying and just like trying to keep my cool as this incredibly charismatic man was just dazzling me with Hollywood stories. And that's a whole different, that's a funny story because the people who were, pulling the strings with it all, the big time, like people, it's like Los Angeles, London, Sydney, and Brisbane who are kind of in on this, and the people in London and LA are like, just play a poker face with Joel, all right, Trent. We haven't sold the rights to him yet. We're just going to sound him out and see what he wants to. And mate, he dazzled me so much in this 2 hours. By the end of it, I just went, "It's yours, mate. It's yours, Joel." If I was just sort of like, I went weak at the knees. And but what's happened since was I was really running away from even indulging in the screenwriting. I love screenplays and stuff, and I love writing screenplays, but I didn't want to write this one. And it's kind of my dream to write a screenplay. And funnily enough, when I had it fall in my lap where someone was going, "Hey, mate, do it. This is your chance," I sort of didn't want to do it. It was weird, but having written All Our Shimmering Skies, it was when I went, no, I'm kind of ready. And just like yesterday and today, I was just nutting out the bone structure of episode 4 in an 8-part series and it's the part I'm writing the part, and which, I don't want to spoil it, but at the big scene on Hornibrook Bridge as the rain comes down and a flathead's caught, and it's like probably my favorite part in the whole book. An interaction between Eli and Slim that happens, and it's a really beautiful moment. But we can take a scene like that and we can wrap into it all this other stuff. So I can actually put into this 8-part thing now, things that I'd never put in Boy Swallows Universe, that I just didn't have the time, or the narrative was being slowed down, so I had to speed it up a bit or whatever. Whereas I can indulge now in, man, I can, you know what I can do, John? I can give my old man, my late father, Dad, he's up there, Noel Dalton, who's basically Robert Bell in that book. Well, I can give him the hero's ending that he deserves, and I mean, I'm getting quite emotional thinking about it because that's the power of storytelling. It's really beautiful, and we're doing things with the Robert Bell character that I didn't do in the book, and giving him a proper arc, because you just don't have time to devote that stuff. And giving Frankie Bell, like, man, my mum read Boy Swallows Universe, right, and she just went. She went, "Trent, it's beautiful." Like she loves that book, but she said, "Gee, it's funny what the way you wrote Frankie Bell, because it's like largely, hugely inspired by that woman, my mum." And she said, "Trent, but gee, you've really put her on a pedestal. And geez, mate, she's a bit, and she's so she said she's a bit kind of angelic, and she's so written by me, and my 12-year-old eyes, where I'm not seeing a single fault in this woman. You know what I mean? I didn't, as a boy, and I still don't, because I'm amazed with that woman and the things she survived. And anyway, what I'm trying to say is, in a TV series, oh, Tegan's emotional. I'm emotional, Tegan. I'm getting emotional. No, don't stop me, Tegan. Are you gonna get me? But it's the power of storytelling, where you can actually make these people live in a richer and even deeper way that I just didn't have time to in the novel. Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, thank you, Tegan. I love you. That's so sweet. Yeah.
I can't wait now for the TV series. It's even better than a movie, an 8-part series, and having you involved. I think I've got goosebumps wanting to see that on the.
Oh, John, you're gonna love it. It's a tone that I've never seen on screen before. I swear to God. I'm not just saying it. It's a dead body being pulled out of the Brisbane River, mixed with Elvis Costello singing the greatest pop rock song you've ever heard, and it feels like that, it's wild. It's Call Me by Your Name meets Manchester by the Sea meets The Godfather. So anyway, I'll stop.
All right, so that's me done with questions. Now, all of you people out who are listening to this fantastic interview, It's your turn to fire a question for Trent to then answer in 10 minutes.
I'm sorry, man. I know. I'm sorry for my answers. Yeah.
No, it's great. Well, we might need you to refresh your connection, Trent. You're dropping out, apparently.
You wonderful people who stayed. There's about 80 of you who stuck through that, and I love every single one of you. Now I'm going to answer your questions in the most amazing way. Midnight with this thing, John, aren't we? We're going
to get through all of them.
I'm so touched, you guys hanging in there. I'm so sorry. So I've just switched to a whole different laptop. There's just nightmare computer stuff. So sorry, but you guys are amazing for hanging in there.
All right, so we've got a question from Keith here, I want to say. What novels have you recently enjoyed reading, Trent?
Oh, you know what? I'll tell you the ones that, you know what I've just read? There's a book by Susan Johnson. It hasn't come out yet. It will come out early next year, but I read it because she asked me to do like an endorsement for it, and it's called From Where I Fell. And it's just written as an email exchange. Basically, a woman emails her husband, her ex-husband, and just gives him this tirade, right? And just like lets rip on this email exchange. And then she's like, why are you not emailing me back? And then she gets a message back. She goes, oh, and it's from some total stranger over in London or the States maybe. And just saying, you've got the wrong email address. And from there, just starts the most amazing pen pal friendship. But what Susan has done with this book is something quite remarkable. And it's just about that idea of letter writing, and it's a real tribute to correspondence, and it was really remarkable. So, you'll read it in a sitting type book, but yeah, that's the latest sort of thing. And then the one before that was Kate Mildenhall's book, The Mother Fault, which is fantastic and wonderful, and just a really great dystopic kind of wild read about a mum who would do anything for her kids. That was really cool too. Yeah. And yeah, they're the two. And then at the same time, I'm reading this book called 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's the story of the Beatles. And it's told like I've read everything. Well, no, not everything written about the Beatles, but I've read a lot. And it's one of the better books I've read about the Beatles because it's told in these amazing vignettes that all come together as this beautiful, magnificent matrix tribute to that incredible band. Yeah, so they're the ones lately. But there's genuinely like always about 6 sort of on the go. There's like a bedroom book, and there's a downstairs book, and there's a lounge room book, and yeah, all sorts of different ones.
All right, so now we've got a question from Margot. What would you say to an aspiring young writer or an aspirant young writers who feel their lives are not interesting enough to base their writing in? Always found this difficult as a teacher.
Oh, absolutely. Great question, Margot. Thank you so much. And just always, if you can, remind them that there is no reason that their voice doesn't belong on the bookshelf, and just the same imposter thing that I was going through, and keep in mind books like Normal People and I don't know, a million other kind of books where you're just unpicking the small, seemingly mundane details of life, and that becomes profound. So you don't have to have a secret room beneath your house in the 1980s, and your mum didn't have to fall in love with a dangerously successful heroin dealer. Like it doesn't matter because your voice is your voice, and there's no other voice like yours. And all you have to do is show the world your heart and soul. That's all you have to do. It's not easy sometimes, but I personally have found, maybe I've disliked a handful of people like throughout my life, but I swear to God, I've found something to love and adore about nearly every human being I've ever had any lengthy contact with, because they are deeply complex, and they are fragile, and they are strong, and like as all humans are, and they are filled with colors. And I just try and get those people in your class, Margot, to those kids, that feel like they have nothing to say. Remind them that absolutely they have something to say, because there's 6 billion voices, and theirs is the most important to them, and that therefore it should be important to the rest of us.
And we've got a question from Jess. What novels have your fans' readers compared Shimmering Skies to? For your information, for me, I'm reminded of Holes by Louis Hasher and Matilda by Roald Dahl.
I love that. I love that you say that, Jess. That's really cool. That idea of Holes, where the magic that's in that, and then obviously the wonder that's in Matilda, and I'd tell you the book though, and it was a book first, the Wizard of Oz. I mean, I had this amazing message, and I don't even overtly mention Wizard of Oz in that book, probably for a reason, but I had this beautiful reader. She's so insightful, and she sent it just this cold message on Instagram, and she just goes, "Trent, I've worked it out. I've got it. Molly's Dorothy, Yukio's the Tin Man, Greta's the lion, Bert the shovel is Toto," and she just worked it like Aubrey's the Wicked Witch of the West. Horace is the Good Witch. Longcoat Bob's the Good Witch. It was just all of these amazing comparisons, and it was profound. I was like, I just think that story must be in the deep sort of subconscious for me, because I do love that story, and even in the book they go on the Silver Road, and it's not necessarily that it's inspired by the Wizard of Oz. It's inspired by the stories that inspired Wizard of Oz. Just classic storytelling, and so if I hear anything too, it's personally, I think it's completely Homer's Odyssey, and it's there's so much of that in there. There's the Cyclops, and there's there's so much of that vein of storytelling in there, and the Lotus Eaters, and there's sirens, and there's, if you can find your own versions of those in the story, which is really fun to do. So it's absolutely, the Dalton boys, and I didn't talk about it much in Boy Swallows Universe, but while all that crazy stuff was going on, we were really not really, inside all of that. We were outside pretending to be, adventurers with swords and shields made of cardboard, and indulging in all our sort of Homer's Odyssey type stuff, and Clash of the Titans and stuff like that. And, so it's absolutely inspired by those books as well.
And Thea Wilson's got a question. Who informed or inspired the character Longcoat Bob?
Oh, Thea, that's actually a really great question. I happen to have, well, here's a quick, I'll try and tell it quick. It deserves an hour-long conversation. And Thea, just seriously, call me up. I'm going to, or get me on Twitter or Instagram if you want to hear a longer answer. But part of my day job, I write for the Weekend Australian magazine, and one story I got sent on just as Boy Swallows Universe was doing its thing, I got sent to a place called Groot Island, which is this incredibly sort of paradise-like island on the edge of Arnhem Land in the Northern Territory. And up on that island, there's a cluster of Indigenous who prone and suffer a genetic disease called MJD, Mercado-Joseph disease. And it's one of those horrendous diseases that robs you of a lot of your muscle function and your movement whilst keeping you fully aware in your head. And you can sort of be fully conscious of the tough times your body's going through. And it's a really debilitating and tough thing to deal with. Now, a lot of the Indigenous on that island, that word that I use in that book, curse, that word on that island isn't a completely unfamiliar term to them at all. And I ran into a man on that island named Steve Buckala Warramurra, and he took me deep into that Groote Island wilderness, and I built a whole story around Steve in the Weekend Australian magazine, and it was all about the way Steve is using bush medicines. And genuinely, I mean, these are his words, and I tread into this world very carefully and with great respect whenever I do mention it. And it's his stories to tell, but I hope and I've sort of even spoke to MD, the Mercado-Joseph Disease Foundation, to sort of get permission to even acknowledge Steve in the back end of that book and the acknowledgements in the book, because it was kind of profound to me, Steve, what he did. He took me into the bush. He starts telling me about how he's using bush medicine and the magic, the genuine, when I say magic, I mean like sort of his version of bush magic to help cure the disease that he has genetically sort of received. And it's been the most profound sort of conversations to kind of be inspired by, and all of Steve Buckala Warramurra's charisma and wonder, and some of his sort of deep knowledge kind of infuse itself into Longcoat Bob, but as well as the amazing buffalo cowboy, Sam Greenway, this buffalo hunting cowboy who Molly's kind of got this great big crush on, and so there's a lot of Steve in both of those characters, but also there's a deeper thing about Longcoat Bob. He's actually a product of the white people in the town misunderstanding who Longcoat Bob is. He's just a man. He's just a guy who has a deep knowledge of a lot of stuff, and it's all of the white people in Darwin City that keep adding all of these myths and this sorcerer-like nature to Longcoat Bob, and that is actually something that I've come across and am very much aware of myself, and very much have seen people do whenever I've covered Indigenous stories as a journalist. We have a way of there's a divide, and there's a way of misunderstanding things, and we put our own thoughts to people. And in my knowledge as a journalist, it was always the people themselves who would keep undermining it and going, "Oh, settle down, mate. Bring that back a bit. Here's the truth of what you're thinking in your head." And so Longcoat Bob represents a bit of that as well. And he also, look, it's a whole story about inheritance. There's a whole incredible. The only thing Longcoat Bob has to say. So I'm so glad you asked about Longcoat Bob. He has really profound things. All these people think he's this mystical person, but he's just got one piece of wisdom to tell people in that book, which is carry all you own all you carry. And that is a deeply powerful message. That's a message that Australia can take as a nation. We can own our past, and we can let it improve our future. And all men and 41-year-olds like me can own their past as well. And let, the minute I owned my past and carried all I owned was when the minute good things started happening to me, and by owning it, I mean bloody writing about it in a book like Boy Swallows Universe, and just letting rip and letting the world, showing the world that I owned it, and I owned it in the right way. And that's very powerful. And so that's what inspired Longcoat Bob too. He's talking to people going, just be careful what you take from the land, and be careful how deep you dig. You don't know whether you're going to dig up the devil, but just whatever you do, just own whatever you did, and I think that's a really important message that he has to say. Yeah.
And Sally's got a question. Was Shelley based on someone you knew? She was awesome.
Oh, Shelley in Boy Swallows Universe. So that's I absolutely was. And she's based on so many particularly amazing girls in my neighborhood, in Brackenridge Housing Commission, where they would inspire me and help me out, and kind of, you'd be feeling sad and you'd go have a smoke by their windowsill, and they'd just go, "Hey man, don't get so down, because there's such a thing as girls and romance and fun things that you can have in that world as well." And that's where Shelley came from. She's this amazing soul for Eli, where she keeps empowering him, and she keeps going, "You're all right, mate. You're all right." And I could tell you 5, girls who were probably older than me back in Brackenridge who kept on doing that for me. And so no one's ever asked me that, Sally. That is such a cool question. No one's ever asked me about Shelley. That's so beautiful. So thank you for asking about her.
All right, and we've got another question coming up.
I'm so amazed you guys hung in there for this. I had all in that lag. Why didn't I just go? I've got this really nice new laptop, and I should have just gone on that. But I'm so sorry.
All right, last question.
All right.
We've got a good connection now. All right, so here's James. So what next, Trent? Is there another book in the works, or the spark of one, or have you been seduced by the TV industry after the Boy Swallows Universe adaptation? Not that I'm trying to rush or anything.
Oh, hey James. All right, man. Here's the real scoop. And I love your question because it suggests that you want another one. So thank you so much. Look, I tell you the truth. I probably now, it's about a month ago now, but I have to just go on like my spine. What does my spine tell me? And I've been cranking out like structured, full bone structures of about, I must have done about 8 of really cool things that I thought that could be full books, and I've enjoyed doing it every step of the way. It's my favorite part of the process. But about a month ago, I had one where I got the chill down the spine, and my heart was telling me man, that's the one you've got to do. And James, it's really cool. There's this, and I particularly came up with this one bit in that story that just went oh, wow, that's great. And so if I get excited about it, then I hope the reader might, and if I feel excited about telling that story, then I think hopefully the reader will want to read it. And as I say, it's kind of bringing it. I don't know. I'm very much inspired by Dickens. I think Dickens is very huge in my world, and I just Samantha, we want another one, man. It's coming, Samantha. Yeah. So I'm bringing a bit of Dickens, and I'm bringing a bit of Geraldine Brooks, and there's a bit of even there's a love story as well. There's just this beautiful, I don't know. And look, I mean, it's just cool. But I realize what I'm here for, and I think I'm here to write about certain places and things that I know, and it's it is that world of Boy Swallows Universe. But here's the real scoop on the thing I was going to tell you, James, because of your beautiful question, and you're making me feel so inspired to just go down the bunker right now and start writing. But I'm really ready to go back to the world of Boy Swallows Universe as well, which I was so reticent to do, and I thought was a bit cheesy and but there's a real depth to perhaps the 4th book I write. I really want to set it back. I want to find out. There's this thing that kept on coming to me that a lot of people, this is just between us guys that don't really go around talking about this too much, but the one question that people would come up to me often after anything regarding Boy Swallows Universe was, what happened to Gus? And what do you think happens to Gus? And I've got very strong ideas about that. And I'm really taken with Frankie's past and Gus's future. And I think there could be something really cool in a book like that. So there's 2 books coming, James, in answer to your question. Yeah. So and there's no way I feel exactly how I feel when I started out in journalism 20 years ago. That's how I feel right now. I feel I've got so much to learn, and I just want to write every bloody Australian story under the sun, and I feel really inspired, and I just I just want to just give so much, and in that way that all those people who have sort of carried me along the way just by picking up those books. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Trent. That was a great question, James. And
Yeah, great question, James.
for everyone that stuck around, you just got a good scoop there at the end of what Trent's writing the next book 3 and book 4 as well, even. So, but
Oh,
keep
man.
it all to yourselves, okay?
Oh, look at that. Tash. Oh, oh, man. Samantha, Elizabeth, Tash, Eve, Britt, Stephanie. I just can't thank you guys enough. Narelle, you write it, we'll read it. Oh, you're the best, you guys. This has been wonderful. It's been really lovely. And I'm so touched you hung in there, you guys. You stuck around. That's just epic.
No, thank you for everyone that stuck around. Thank you so much, Trent, for joining us tonight. It's been wonderful.
John Page, you're a national book treasure, mate. Thanks for all you do, man. It's so great to catch up.
That's too easy. When you write the books as good as you have, it makes our jobs as booksellers so much easier because we just want to put those books into as many people's hands as possible. So looking forward.
Thanks for everything. You bet.
Everyone out there, we've got a special discount on Shimmering Skies online for tonight. I think there's a promo code. I'm trying to remember. I think it's CH1 Shimmer, but I might be wrong. But check at the top of the post. It's there. If you've already read Shimmering Skies, if you've already read Boy Swallows Universe, give it as a gift this Christmas. It's going to be soon.
Great idea.
Buy more copies and give them away. Share books with more people and get more people to fall in love with Trent Dalton's writing. Trent, for joining us, and thank you everyone for tuning in and sticking around, and have a great night.
You guys are all amazing. Thanks, guys.